So, back again with a game against Victor and his Empire of Sonnstahl. After Lincoln, I felt I needed to change things up again, since I'm not at all satisfied with that tournament. Probably both me and the list needs to change, but at the moment the list is the easier choice. During the tournament, the only thing I was happy about were the lords, the guards, and the altar. I felt that the BSB wasn't bringing anything on its own, so I decided to go back to having an altar mounted BSB instead. I kept the cloak, which might have been a bit of an overkill and a waste of already decent ward save and multi-wound, but I think it's nice with a BSB that is almost invulnerable to both magic and shooting, and still pack a decent punch in combat. The Spearmen too were a disappointment, and their survivability wasn't enough to keep them in the list, so I have swapped them for a pretty big unit of Blades of Nob instead. I also thought it a waste spending points on a bunker that have no other use, so they too got swapped for Blades. Not very good as a bunker, but we'll see if I can find a way around that. To minimize the risk of fleeing Hydras, I swapped a Raider Shaft unit for some insignificant Harpies instead. The monsters themselves get another chance, and we'll see if I can bring them to justice in this game. I also squeezed in another level 1 Oracle. So, first time against the Sonnstahl, and it's exciting. We played the breakthrough scenario with the regular deploy. I chose side, and he then decided to go first. I didn't want to risk betting on the wrong side, since both his flanks were suitable for him to deploy in, so when he placed one of his big infantry blocks in the middle, I felt that he was somewhat committed to support it with more stuff, so I put everything down with my infantry in the middle against his. I was a bit afraid of his mortar, so I tried to minimize any losses by placing my units 2 ranks deep. From the top is my altar, then the Kraken with Harpies behind, Blades, then guards with the small blade unit behind. In the guard unit is the general and the level 1. In the small blades is the level 3. Behind the house are the raiders, and furthest to my right are the Hydras. For magic, I think I should have chosen the signature instead of Wind Blast if I had thought things through. From the top on his side, out of the picture, are his knights with commander and preacher. Then the handgunners on a hill, swordsman with the general and a preacher. Behind the impasse, he puts his BSB, forgetting that I have a magic missile spell. Then we have his Griffon Marshal, mortar, spears with a preacher, cannon, his wizard out in the open, the volley gun, and lastly his steam tank. I think he had fireball and flaming swords on his wizard. My plan from the start was that one of the Hydras would try to distract his tank on the right for as long as possible, while I went for the middle. The Kraken should in turn try to slow down his right flank, so I started by moving the Hydras as planned. The left one goes behind the house to join the rest of my units. Determined not to panic a Hydra in this game, I keep the raiders far enough away. Unfortunately, you can't see my left, where the Kraken moves into a wood, daring his knights to charge. I know it cannot stand against that, but it will at least get to hit and should kill at least one of his characters, and he will have to get into the woods too, risking some dangerous tests. Perhaps not the best of plans, but he have a pretty long charge too, so everything else moves straight up. In my magic he dispels a thunderbolt when I try to get his wizard. Instead I get the comet with overwhelming force, and like the last 2 times I've miscast, I get breach in the veil. Fortunately I only used 3 dice this time and only blew up 8 blades from my little bunker and 1 or 2 guards. When that happened I felt like there goes my level 3 again at turn 1 this time, since now she's out of protection, dies from a single cannon shot if it happens. But as you will see, it turned out pretty well in the end, so a little spoiler there. His knights charge the Kraken and they get in. He then carefully move up, blocking my raiders from charging with the tank, and moving the spears a bit. He moved the swordsman up too, and his Griffon Marshal flies over to his war machines. His magic doesn't do much as I scroll Flaming Swords bubble and dispel all but a ward save on his knights. Then we do things in the wrong order, but the comet comes down, killing the wizard who was still in the open, panicking both archers and the volley gun. Also picking wounds off left and right, so it was worth the miscast in this case. Next his mortar drifts off and his cannon misfires and can't shoot the next turn. His steam tank shoots at a Hydra instead of the wizard, but I think the Hydra reg saves it. In combat my Kraken doesn't make a damn hit and go down without making a scratch. In my turn then, the Harpies actually have a 9-inch charge on his mortar, so I take that one and they make it. Next the blades and guards split against one flank each, while the Hydras move towards the middle. Here you also see my awesome new project come into view. It's my new altar that's slowly coming together. I really like the one I made from the 3-man, but my hands on a cheap Necron Doom site, I couldn't help myself but started building a new one for the BSB version of the altar. My oracle and the last blade from the bunker hides behind the house, and then I make a very noobish mistake with the raiders, thinking that I can redirect a tank which has random move. Well, I could have, but not in this way. In the magic phase my head isn't working and I mix things up. In the end we played it was the Stars line, gets through on the blades unit, which also is altar buffed. Harpies kills the mortar and it's his turn. Realizing I fucked things up with the tank, I'm thinking the Hydra is screwed, but when he instead charges it with the Griffon Lord, I see a chance of getting away with my mistake, so the Hydra does what they used to do and flee, but this time more by choice than usual. The Griffon then fails, but he also charges spears into the guards, not realizing the awesome shoppiness that is the tower guards. His knights charge the blades. I think he also tried with the swordsman, which I gladly would have get some hits on, but they unfortunately failed. His tank then go for the raiders, which now accidentally succeeds with the diversion since the Hydra fled. For magic, I think he might have got the reroll to wound well off on the spears, and his volley gun shoot down 4 harpies. So combat, and we start at the night combat. I think my blades are 13 or 14 wide, which with the altar buff makes it around 60 attacks. I've never rolled so many dice in my life at the same time, and with hatred and reroll to wound from Stars Align, there are not many that fail to wound. He then rolls 7 or 8 ones. Nonetheless, I think he actually won combat, but the blades stick. The guards then kill about 15 spears and the preacher, and then take some wounds back. The spears stick, and the tank has made short work of my raiders. So it's my turn again, and since his volley gun only has 1 wound left, I charge it with the last harpy. The guards get the buff this time, and I think the left Hydra tries to charge on General's unit but fail. The Harpy get in though. The Hydra actually rallies. Magic, and I get Stars line off again on the blades. This time in combat the blades doesn't do shit anyway, and the knights neither, so there is nothing happening there. The guards break the spears but fail to catch them, but the spears on the other hand panic both the archers and the Volgan, who just killed the last Harpy. His Griffon Marshal then tries to charge the Hydra again, and since it is suicide to stand, I flee this time too. Also, I do want the Marshal for the guards. With a failed charge he will stay where he is. He tries to redirect to the other Hydra, but that's a very long one, so I decide to hold. He fail, and his General's unit also fail a charge on the same Hydra. His tank goes into the guards. The archers rally, but the spears do not and run off the board. I don't think magic does anything special, and then he gets a shot in on the fleeing Hydra, doing some wounds. General finally do his stuff, giving 6 wounds to the tank. Some of my guards die, but I win combat. The blades on the other hand lose this time again and break, and then gets run down. I then try a charge with the altar and Hydra into his General's unit, but only the Hydra makes it in. The other Hydra continues his flight. I think I cast Stars Line this turn too on the Hydra, and in combat the Hydra actually managed to break his General's unit, but doesn't catch them. My Prince chops the last wounds off the steam tank, and it's his turn 4. His Griffon tries his 4th charge against the Hydra during this game, but I flee, this time the other Hydra, to make him fail and land straight in front of the guards instead. Next, his General's unit rally and the Knights turns towards the middle. He shoots some stuff, but doesn't seem to wound anything. So it's my turn again, and I charge his Griffon, and he stands to take it. The left Hydra rallies this time, while the other one runs off the board. Since it is late game, I want to prevent his knights from getting the breakthrough points, so I position the altar so that if he tries to take the scenario, he will get charged by either the Hydra or the altar. So we will probably choose to charge the altar instead, which I hope I can deal with. The wizard then gets out of dodge, and so does the last blade model. My prince then adds another trophy to the rack by killing his marshal. His knights then take what I hope to be a bait and charge the altar. I think he killed some guards with his shooting, and in combat it was a challenge, and my BSB altar killed his champ. Perhaps it was the preacher. I don't know, and but I did enough overkill to win. He was steadfast and stuck, so my last turn, and my guards charged the cannon, and not thinking things through, I just run the Hydra to safety, which was a bit of a mistake, as you will see later. In combat the cannon dies, and I stay put to take the scenario objective. In the other combat no one dies, so I lose by 1, but stick. He tries a long charge on the Hydra now, and now we'll see that it was a mistake to just run and hide. If he gets in, he can make an overrun with his unit and claim the scenario objective. It's a long charge, but nevertheless, if he makes it, it's a big point swing. Had I stayed put or just moved out of the charge, I would not have lost any points, but now I felt that I had to flee, and thereby giving him half the Hydra points. Not much, but unnecessary nonetheless. Shoots down a bunch of tower guards, and the last combat is still a pillow fight. So, with me having the scenario, it's a small win for the Dread Elves. I think we both made several tactical mistakes in this game, and there were more Hydras fleeing than ever. But overall I think this list was better than the one I brought for Lincoln. I have sadly come to the conclusion that I'm probably better off without the monsters altogether. we'll see in the future. The reason here is that it hit me that what the monsters bring to the army are only attention hugging and the stomps attack mostly. A glass cannon army, as the rest of my army isn't much helped by the stomps, as the damage is already done at that point, so either I need more units with the glass cannon potential or units that can damage before combat. So at this point I'm leaning towards hunter chariots and bolt throwers, which I had hoped to avoid since I like to have an unique flavor to my army and not the same as everyone else. This means that, as usual, the list will continue its never-ending morph, probably until the last day to submit the list for the next tournament. See you soon, I hope, for another game.